Hello, Ken. How are you this fantastic evening?
Oh, Dan, all the better for having seen your shining face, sir. How are you tonight?
It is pretty shiny. For
It
those of you who
is.
get to see the video, there's a lot of redness in my face, and it's not because there's a red light shining on. I've been outside a lot. I actually got to go to the PGA golf tournament that was in my area this past weekend, which was great. I get to play golf for the second time this year yesterday. So my shining face has a lot to do with the sun that was previously shining on it. So, Ken, tonight we are talking about fortification. What is this all about?
Dan, this has taken me by surprise. So I'm going to turn this back on you. Fortification, I just think of the Wild West, and I think of forts, and I think of defending things. But I have a feeling that there's something else behind this. And I'd like you, sir, to
Yeah.
jump in here and tell
I
me.
saw you get really excited as I was starting to come out with that word. You just like, did he say fornication? And I did not. I said fortification,
And
right?
I would
Are we building forts? What are we doing here?
I hope so, because I used to love them. So tell me, is this about forts?
In fact, it is not about forts, but it is similar. I don't know the origin of the word. I'm sure we can look it up. If there was only a thing where you can look up stuff and like find the word, but it comes from a sales training that I do, the CI method, top secret sales system. And one of the 7 steps of the sales process is fortify. And so that's what we're here to talk about. We're talking about fortifying, which is in fact strengthening your position, right? And this might be your position in attempting to influence somebody on just your position on anything, right? Like, so you could be a part of a homeowners association and you want to go in and influence them to your side or argue your case. You might just be having a discussion with your significant other and you really want to strengthen the position that you have. But this is a step that comes prior to your attempt to influence anybody. So how do you fortify is the real question. And I'm going to give you a couple tips. And I'd love to hear, obviously, like Ken's relationship with his previous fortifications. But no, so in my opinion, to fortify your position in anything, it's all about being really upfront. What do I mean? I mean that you state, there's an old saying. It says, tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them, then tell them what you told them. That's really what it's all about. It's if you're about to attempt to influence somebody, bring them around to your opinion. You need to call out the cliched elephant in the room. It's like if you're trying to get to the point of making somebody bring over to your side, right? Or influence them to make a buying decision in sales, they're all waiting for that point in which you're going to go. You're making the ask, right? Like, when are they going to get to the spot where they're going to say, hey, will you go ahead and do this for me? So you strengthen your position, you fortify by simply calling out what you're going to do before you do it. So you can say, the reason that I wanted to sit here and have a conversation with you, the reason I came to the HOA meeting today, the reason I did whatever is because I would like to be able to show you how or influence you such or do whatever. So we can all come to this place where, boom, you make a buying decision or whatever. And you even so much tell them what that will look like. You're almost like showing them the appendix of the book, right? To say, let me show you future chapters that are going to take place in this book before you read it to decide if this is worth reading. So specifically with sales, you would let them know, hey, when we meet, my outcome is that you feel, so like there's a match between what we do and what you want, that at the end, you're ready to move forward with us, make a buying decision. Now, let me tell you what a buying decision would look like. It would look like X and Y and Z, and this is how we'd complete that buying decision. So the first part of fortifying is tell them what's going to happen, right? And lay it all out and let them come up with, really, this is the key, let them come up with their objections early, right? To go, oh, I wouldn't be ready for that. That doesn't make sense for me. I don't know if blah, 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 whatever. Because what it does is it arms you with information that when you go further along in your attempt to influence them, right, or get the sale eventually, bring them over to your side, they've already revealed the objections up front because you didn't leave it till later to tell them what's going to happen in the process.
So there's like three things that's great. There's three things that come up for me. One of them is when you talk about bringing them over to your side, it feels more like an invitation and less like a sales job. It doesn't have I think some of the negative connotations that could be associated with sales. So I love just that language around it. The second piece that really strikes me is that uh, in laying everything out in advance, this feels a lot like what we talked about on the last show when we talked about moving people from that danger zone to the safe zone, from that place where they're guarded and when they're thinking about good for me, bad for me, how is this going to affect me. If you tell them in advance, then automatically, like you said, the elephant in the room, it's gone. And the third thing is this, I would just point out that this works in nonprofit fundraising just like it works in for-profit sales. When I used to do development work and I would meet with people, I would tell them, look, I am going to ask for a gift at the end of this presentation, but not now. You keep your wallet in your pocket. Right now, I want to tell you about the great work that's being done and about how you can make an impact and have a difference in that. So I'm hooked. Tell me more.
So a big thing for me is ease of communication. So I think a big thing that if you schedule a future event, right? So sorry to stick with this HOA meeting, but it's just in my head for some reason. So an HOA meeting has been scheduled. And you're trying to encourage people to show up, right? Because there's something on the agenda and you are trying to influence them to vote and approve something for your neighborhood. And so the first step would be to schedule the meeting. And once you've scheduled the meeting, so we're talking about how do you now fortify this meeting so the end of the meeting, they all vote in favor of whatever it is that's going to impact your community. So you want ease of communication. So what does that mean? That means that these people that you've invited, make sure that you have the ability to text with them. And so for you youngins, what texting is the same thing you do on Snapchat, but it's just, we don't do it over an app. We just use our phones. It's really simple. But anyway, so make sure you have the ability to text, because what we traditionally do with meetings is we send some sort of meeting invitation over email. And we're oftentimes uncertain, like we're waiting for someone. Did they accept? Did they not accept? Some people don't accept and they'll show up. You don't have a good sense of what's going on. So immediately when you've sent an email invitation or if you're talking to them on the phone and you're scheduling or setting up the situation, you strengthen your position by saying, hey, let's set up an email communication. So that way, if there's any changes, last minute changes or anything else, we can easily just text each other. Get the information from that person. It fortifies your position because now you're on texting communication and not just a person who just emails back and forth. To me, that's really important. The other thing is it enables you to do reminders, right? So the day of, the day before, whatever, the couple hours leading up, you can say, hey, Ken, reminding you that tonight is our blah, blah, blah HOA meeting. And what's on the docket is X, right? Like you can remind them about the thing that you're going to try to influence them to vote on later and approve. In addition to that, whenever you send your email invitation or whatever thing for this is, you want to restate whatever you stated in inviting them in the first place. So when you said to them, hey, what's going to be on the docket is this, and I hope by the end we can all vote to approve this for our neighborhood, you're going to also put in the email those exact words. So you're going to literally tell them what's going to happen multiple times. So if this was a phone conversation that Ken and I had, I would invite him to the meeting. I'd say, Ken, the reason I like you to come is because this is going to be on the docket. I'd like you to vote in approval of it, but let's wait and see. When you get there, you get to hear, discussions, whatever. And then when I get his phone number and I text him, I'm going to say, Ken, so excited for you to join us on this date and time, blah, blah, blah. Remember, this is going to be on the docket and we're going to, hopefully approve that at the end of the meeting. And then when I send him an email as well, I'm going to say, and here's the agenda for our HOA meeting. And I'm just going to keep saying it. So what am I doing? I'm fortifying it with different types of communication styles, giving, in this case, Ken plenty of time to process and feel very comfortable There's no unknowns. I'm like stating it all up front and putting it all on the table. You couldn't later go, I didn't know what this was all about, right? You go, no, I knew exactly what it was about. And I was very clear that my intent as the person organizing this was to try to get you to come to my side and vote to approve or buy the thing, whatever it is.
So, Dan, do you think there's more resistance for something like you described with the HOA than there is for selling a product or a service, or do you think it's the other way around, or do you think they're equivalent? That the techniques that you use are pretty much the same because what you're trying to do in both cases is to invite somebody over to your side. You're trying to get them on your side and see things maybe through the lens that you're seeing them, so they'll make a decision that'll be favorable. What do you see as the distinction between those things?
I think they're very similar. I think the same tactic strategy could be used in almost any context. Also, add something to it, which is inside of the email, we're talking about what's in it. Whatever step needs to happen. So in this HOA meeting, you could almost show like a voting ballot as an example, right? Like attached is the voting ballot that we're going to ask you to vote on at the end of the meeting. If it's sales, you can say attached is the agreement that I'm going to ask you to authorize at the end of our meeting, right? If you decide to move forward with us. You just want you're strengthening your position, in my opinion, by lowering all of the objections, the things they'd be on guard, the fences they put up to block you, stop you, stand in the way of you being able to be successful in what you're doing. You're removing that in the sense by taking this very active, proactive position of like, I'm just going to be so upfront. I'm so upfront and everything's right here, giving you plenty of time to review, because what is the most common objection for anything, for any decision that has to be made, whether it's a buying decision, a voting decision, or whatever, right? It's almost like I need more time to process it. So you strengthen your position by simply giving them the time leading up, because they're not learning in the moment. All you're doing in the moment is further fortifying, you could say, right? You're almost like, you almost want the point to be like, I got it, man. You've done this so many ways that like, I know exactly what this meeting's about. And you could even state that right up front of the meeting, which is also what I recommend, is to the point that you're going, okay, guys, just to review, I know I sent you an email. I know I sent you a text. I know we had a phone conversation with many of you. This is the reason for this meeting. Boom, boom. We can be really efficient because I think most of you have had a chance to review what it is we're voting on today, or what it is, da, da, da. And I think people really appreciate this really forthrightness, this like really direct approach. And it comes across I think in no way salesy. I think it comes across in a way that's like, wow, this person's really respectful and in the way that they handle this.
So when you think about objections in advance, what kind of prep work do you do to help set up for success? And I get that in the conversation, being present in the conversation, just listening and honestly answering objections that arise in the moment, super important too. But are there things that you do to prepare so that when you step in, maybe you like seed the ground with some stuff in advance of the conversation?
Absolutely. So part of I almost don't think there could be overkill in this, but it could come across, a listener could listen and go, holy cow, you're really laying it on heavy here. But when you're talking about digital communication, right, and you're sending somebody an email, it's easy enough to just put links in, right? If they don't want to click on the link, they click on the link. And if they don't, they don't. So it can look like a very short, simple, direct email that has a bunch of links or it could be attachments that they can decide whether they care about those or not. So to go back or address your specific question, one of the ways you preempt objections is by attacking both sides of it. One is testimonials, right? So people who had great experiences, you can literally have a link. If you'd like to hear about people who had other communities that also voted in favor of this and had great experiences, click here. And you could read other, people who talk about like, yeah, we approved that 2 years ago and that's been great for us, whatever, this example. You also could show the people that were, I'll say converts, right? To say like, you're almost like trying to read their mind in the sense you're going, yeah, you could have a little video where it's like Ken was like, I was really skeptical. That sounded like too good to be true. That sounded like it wasn't going to work for me, blah, 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 blah. And then you could talk about how, and then I saw my neighbor and he tried it out for a little bit and I kind of was monitoring how it was going for him. And after he had used this thing, product service for 3 months, I decided to give it a try and now blah, blah, blah. And that's also a testimonial, but you want to, I think, intentionally include people who can strengthen your position by they can align with the skepticism. They can align with the worry, like, am I getting scammed? Is this real? Too good to be true, all that kind of stuff. And give them the ability to have that information before you do it. In the moment, you can directly ask. If it's a one-on-one, it's really easy. I can go, Ken, did you have a chance to click on any of those links? No, I didn't. Great. I would like to review some of that stuff with you if that would be all right. And it would be, right? And then that's a different stage of a sales process. But by providing it all up front, this is what we're talking about today, just fortifying your position. You're overcoming objections before they even happen because you're putting it all right there on the line, right? The exact agreement, all the things that are going to happen, how it's going to happen in order and sequence.
So something that I do, and I'd love to get your feedback on this, is after I've gone through the process with a prospective client, I always say, don't sign this unless I've answered all of your questions. Don't sign this if you still have doubts. Don't sign this if there's somebody on your leadership team that's not in agreement with this, because we're going to spend the first part of the engagement talking about why you hired me. We're not going to be able to dive right into what we're doing. So I'd love your feedback on that, and if you incorporate anything like that into your sales process.
So I don't know if you're aware of what you just did there, but it's a very powerful NLP technique for people who want to look that up. NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming. And part of what's known is that humans are very bad at negation. So if you say don't, stop, no, it's really not, they don't hear the negative part of that. They hear just the commanding part of it. So you say don't sign, don't sign, don't sign. Really what they're hearing is sign, 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 right? You've heard a lot of people in sales training say, like, get them to say yes a bunch of times, stuff like that, right? So maybe you were aware of that, maybe not, maybe you heard that from somebody, but there's a positivity in the fact that you're actually saying don't sign, don't sign, don't sign, because their subconscious mind is hearing sign, 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 right? Part of a technique similar to that I use, like, I know you told me you're not ready to move forward today, right? So what they hear is I'm ready to move forward today. They don't hear, right? But I'm acknowledging. So if they told me earlier, hey, just so you know, I'm not going to be ready to move forward today, I will later bring that back up. Right. And I will say, Ken, you told me you're not ready to move forward today. Right. Again, subconscious mind here is ready to move forward today. It actually fortifies your position. It helps you actually with influencing them to hopefully not stick with what they said and actually overcome. And many people will throw out those objections like right up front. And to address specifically the part about not being ready until certain things are met, I frame in the positive manner. Right. So I say, my philosophy or my approach is that I want you to not just be like, I'm ready, but to be excited about moving forward with us. Something of that nature. You can say it in your own way. So much so that you're going to go back to whoever, if it was like a home thing, like you're going to go back to your significant other, you're going to go back to your business partner, you're going to go back to your colleagues and tell them how excited you are, right? That, oh my, you're going to be so happy to learn that we just went forward with this company, or we're using this service, or we bought this product, and it's going to make everything better. I want you to be like our biggest advocate, right? So until you feel like you're totally bought in, like you're sold and you're ready to move forward, then we can, decide it makes sense for us to authorize this agreement or move forward, or however you frame it. So yes, I think that is a very important thing. It's, to me, this step is one of 7 steps in a sales process. But to me, just think about it. Fortify is all about strengthening your position. And in my opinion, the strongest position that you can create for yourself is one of just complete forthrightness. It's like, I just put it all on the table. All my cards, I'm all in, right? I'm holding back nothing. I'm holding back nothing. And there's a lot of little examples of this. I think we've given you some tonight, but yeah, many examples of ways that you can fortify your position.
But Dan, I think the key there to wrap this up in what you just said is if you've put all your cards on the table, if you've been transparent about everything, I'm going to trust you. I have a sense that if you're willing to just lay it all out on the table, not withhold, I don't get any sense from you that, well, we'll tell you after you sign the contract. There's nothing about it that's sleazy at all. If what's occurring for me is that this process is establishing and then building and enhancing trust. Like the fortification is, I want us to have a bond between each other, so that when I do say yes, I'm excited about it, and I'm really happy to move forward. And hopefully, that person is going to become an advocate for your company.
Absolutely. And one example that stands out to me are companies that post, if you've ever heard of Glassdoor, which is usually companies when somebody leaves, usually a disgruntled employee gets fired or quits or whatever, they had a bad experience, they usually go on Glassdoor and will report like, don't work for these people, whatever, whatever. So when a company is so upfront that they're like, no, here's our Glassdoor link, like a link, you don't have to look it up and find our company on there. It's like all these like Trustpilot or these different like rating systems where people go to talk, usually trash about a company. I love it when people are very upfront about that. Like just lay it all out there. Like put it. I think that to me is like flaws and all, right? Like there is no perfect company. There's no perfect person. There's no perfect product, service, whatever. So just say, yep, I'm very proud of the fact that, 93% of people really love us, right? You're always going to have those 7% of people who you can never make happy. But here's different places that tell you about how their experience was with us.
And they're not hiding anything.
They're not hiding anything.
Yeah,
So
that's
bottom
great.
line, fortify your position. If you're about to go attempt to influence somebody to you take your side on something, to buy your product or service, think about some of these tools and techniques we talked about today. And really, before you go there, lay it on the table, fortify your position, strengthen it. It gives you the best opportunity to make the sale.